This time we're going to be working on about a 4-foot tall Santa Gemmy that's having some issues. So I'm going to hit the button.
How about a song to get you
Besides his hole in his head.
Holiday spirit?
So his head turns, but it doesn't want to turn back. You hear the motor.
Dashing through the snow in a one-horse open sleigh.
So his head's supposed to turn back and forth. And now it's trying. That's why it's fighting my finger.
What fun it is to ride and sing a sleighing song tonight. Oh, jingle bells, jingle all the way. Oh, what fun it is to ride in a one-horse open sleigh. Hey, jingle bells, jingle all the way.
Catches every once in a while, so I think it's got a broken gear. So, we're gonna turn him off. We're gonna try and fix him, get him ready for Christmas this year. So, I gotta figure out how to take this head off, like all other Gemmies. There's usually a clip in the back. So, let's take a look. Turn him off. And there's the clip. Right there. And apparently his hat won't keep. Stay out of my way. This is an outdoor display Gemmy, which is why he's got a hole in his head and his beard is cracked because of the sun and stuff. So, it did come with a second hat. This bigger hat was on him to cover his head. Anyway, let's get his head off. Give me a moment. I have to put the camera down for that. And see what's going on inside. Okay, the head has now been removed. It just took 2 hands. Because just flicking with one hand, it wasn't fully disengaging this clip. So now I'm going to turn it back on and see what's going on with this piece, which is what rotates his head. Trying to turn it on. There we go. Now I need to press the button.
Merry Christmas. It's the most wonderful time.
I've been told he's supposed to move back and forth like this, but I need to look it up to verify. Does that motor sound? Oops, I turned him off. Oh, I think I just unplugged him. That motor sound sounds like coming from his belly area. But we know there's a problem up here in the head as well. So we're going to have to unscrew it and check the mechanism in the neck and find out if it's got a broken gear or what. So, bear with me for another moment. Grab a screwdriver and possibly a cell phone holder so I can do this with 2 hands. Alright, let's get the rest of this out. Here's the one piece. Now we need to take off this cap, which is 3 smaller screws. The piece on the top is a total of 4 screws that are number 2, and these are number 1 Phillips. There we go. And there's the gears, which don't look horrible. And this one has a motor off to the side. But that's the one that would break. So they're very well lubricated still for an outdoor display. Yeah, nasty. Guess I should get a paper towel and a see if I can See what's going on in there. Doesn't look to be broken. So let's turn it on again. Put the gears back. There you go. Ah, come on. Alright, start it around. Well, it's on. That's right. I either unplugged it or I jarred the cord. No, it's plugged in. I've lost power. Alright. I'm trying to figure out why I lose power. Probably the plug end down there. It was corroded. I cleaned it. Probably has a bad contact. Right in here. Because again, this was an outdoor. You can hear the speaker. So there's still a little. Yeah, that's the problem. I have to probably take this base apart or clean this out with a Q-tip and some rubbing alcohol. Oh. Ah. It'll take me longer just to get the thing to turn back on than anything else. It's probably going to need a new power port. I might have to do that before I can continue. There we go. All right. All right. Well, let me work on this power port. So you can figure out what's going on, why his head doesn't turn, if it's a bad gear here or if it's a belt underneath, and then see what's inside of his belly to make him jiggle. See his arm swing. So, all right. Be back in a moment once I get this power port figured out. Okay, I have it hooked up to my power supply. Kind of a messy bench, which I've talked about in other videos. So the problem is the AC adapter end on this. This is the problem because it's been kinked for so long. If I wiggle it, it works. So I have it hooked up to my power supply with the same port using just an end. And as you can see, it's working just fine. So it's not the part in the unit, it's the power adapter end. So I'll have to cut it off and replace it. But let's try and get up inside here. This motor only turns the head. Whatever is attached below it turns the body. So I need to get his clothes off, but they are attached. I can't lift them. There's a metal bar in here that's holding it. Probably like a metal strap. And then his pants, which come down a little, are actually sewed with this black to his jacket. So I need to get up in his torso, up in here, to get to this motor that's kicked him at an angle right now, because he's kind of sideways. If I can't get him to go back straight up and down, so it looks like he's got scurvy. So I'm probably going to have to end up cutting these to separate the pants so I can look inside his torso, which is, I can put my finger inside. So I'm probably going to have to snip all these sewn pieces to get inside of his upper body to find out what's in here that's not working. And then find out what's in here that's not working, because the head doesn't move unless I help the gears. Let's get that turned off again. So bear with me for a moment. I'm going to go start cutting these off. And we're going to see if we can get inside. So I'm going to just use some side cutters, stretch it so I don't cut the actual fabric, and just the black tie. If I can get in here. Okay, these things cut metal. There we go. It's like these things cut metal. Turn off the power supply. This one has a staple right there. There's another staple right there. Let's cut this stitch. Like that. You know, it's just like everybody's fantasy, right? Undressing Santa Claus. Pull that staple out. Alright, now I'm going to kind of tip it down. So we can get a look at the insides here. Change the angle of the camera so I can turn on the flashlight. So, look in here. So I'm going to try and put this in here with my hand. This is the speaker box right here. And there is the jiggly mechanism that keeps going. And there's a pulley. If you notice, there's no belt. This thing has thrown its belt, and I'm wondering if that's why the motor's just free spinning. And well, it probably just needs a belt. So I'm gonna have to find a belt. That's a pretty big belt. It's not a very long belt, but it's a thick belt. As you can tell by the size of the pulley in relationship to my finger. So that's the guy right there, and here's the other end right here. It's open, which is kind of nice to change the belt. Problem is you have to take his pants off to get to it. That's kind of weird. And then this is the springs. Let's get the phone out. It's stuck. The springs that collapse, and so he can fit back in its box if he uses this box. So I'm gonna go through my belts and see what I got, and see if I can make this thing hook up, and see if I'll dance again. Then we'll work on his neck. All right. Headless Santa dances again with a new belt. Look at that. And his old belt fell out of his pants. Luckily, because I bought my parts from Skull Crane Electronics a long time ago, I have a few of these belts. And to show you, there it is. That's who I got it from. See, belts and gears. And I bought the pack. I bought several packs with the gears and the belts mixed, and then just some packs of the oversized belts like this one. So that way I could work on different things that take fatter belts, not just Gemmy products. So now I need to work on his head and find out why his head is intermittent. So let me get this thing back on the ground and not on my chair. And I guess I gotta figure out an extension for my wires, because my meter doesn't, or my power supply right there in this mess doesn't have very long leads. So other than that, dancing headless Santa is kind of interesting. Good for Halloween, I guess. But anyway, let me get this thing back on the ground and get the neck mechanism up here. See what's going on. It's probably got a slipping belt or a broken gear. So give me just a moment to get this thing prepped onto the ground so we can, you know, I'm not standing on the step stool to see inside. And we'll go from there. Alright, now that we know that we have a bad power supply, and I've now moved the Santa torso over yonder, let's replace this. So, on Amazon, they sell packages of barrel connectors that unscrew, that you solder your wires in, and you can replace set end. So, because this was folded over so tight, I bet you it cracked right in here at this strainer leaf. So it's going to be a little shorter now, but I'm going to cut the end off, throw it away. I'm going to now strip and separate the zip cord. But before I do that, take this sleeve and slide it on down so you don't forget to do it. That's what screws onto here. And now I'm just going to strip off a little bit of the exposed wire. And just to make sure, the wire that has the white dashes on it, hopefully you can see it, should be hot. 99.9% of the time it is. But we get that occasional 0.1% where somebody at the factory reverses the polarity, and it's not hot. So I'm going to plug this thing in to my wall socket here, and if it is still the same, then this should read like 14 volts positive or negative. Not reading anything. What did it do? Fall out? No, it's in all the way. Well, that's not good. Maybe the power supply died. Maybe all that kinked wire caused it to short out. So, do the sniff test where you smell it for any burning smell. The two pins are tight, so they're not loose, meaning that they're burned on the inside. Let's try this again. So, that's definitely not good. I am getting 0 power. Reset it just to be safe. I'm going to kick it up so I can see it without glare as well. Hopefully you can still see it. And that should be hot. Yeah, it's not right. Something's not working. I bet you the power supply died. There we go. So I'm getting, yeah, negative 12 when I reverse the leads. And there we go. 12 volts, 14 volts. Apparently I didn't turn my phone off after recording with the phone. So 12 volts, free float. And yes, this is the positive side, the one with the white dashes. So this one has not been changed from manufacturing. I always check them, even though they're supposed to be universal. I have come across a couple that aren't, and it's the safe than sorry aspect. So on this long pin is ground, or the outer section. The short pin is the center section. And it also comes with these little pieces of heat shrink. Let's get these out. There's a couple of reasons. There's two different sizes with this kit. You got a small and a large. And how this works is a large, you slide over your wires, make sure it's unplugged if they're exposed like this, just like I unplugged it right here. And that's to take up the slack inside of this. Oh, also we have a broken wire right here. That's probably not assisting or helping the issue any. Matter of fact, a lot of this cable is damaged. Maybe it's not just the end. I might replace the entire cord. I might solder a new section on right here. So before I do that, let me pause the video, go get some zip cord that can handle this power. Do I have any sitting here that's next to me? Was not prepared to have to replace a lot of this. This is cracked and damaged from being outside in the sun. That might be part of the issue. The other issue is when I wiggle the end, I get power and no power, so it's going to have to be cut off and replaced anyway. And even if I did just replace it from here, I still have to put a new end on it. So, since I wasn't prepared for this, I don't have any wire with me, so I'm going to go grab some. So I shall return in just a moment. It's going to be probably a hair thicker because most of the cabling I use is slightly heavier, because heavier wire is less resistance, so it generates less heat, and then it also can handle more abuse, as well as it handles the sun better, since this is an outdoor display. So bear with me for a second. We'll come right back to this. Alright, so this is my thinnest zip wire. It is a slightly thicker gauge, and the insulation is thicker. It's hard to see anymore what it said, but it's 300 volt rated. It's 250 feet on this spool, which isn't there anymore because I've been using a lot of it. And I didn't pay a lot for it because I got it at the Goodwill. But I use this stuff on cars, my low voltage lighting outside, because it's a low voltage style wiring for running your lights and stuff. So 12 volts for a car is the same as your low voltage lighting. So what I'm going to do also to be nice to him is, this cord is pretty short. It's only about 6 feet. So because I'm going to do a slightly fatter gauge, less resistance, I'm going to go a little bit longer so his outdoor display, he can plug this in easier. So I'm going to go probably about 12 feet. That wasn't supposed to happen. So 12 feet, let's get this out of my way. And first things first, I'm going to split it. I'm going to slide this down, which is a much tighter fit since it's a thicker wire. I probably won't need the heat shrink, the fatter one, but I'm going to slide that in. Because what this does is it takes up the gap in the boot, which there is no gap, and that's what it's for. It slides in and fills in the gap in here. And so we're going to start where we were before. Split and separate and remove the ends. Now in this, it doesn't have a white line. It has a serrated and smooth side. So the serrated I'm going to use for the negative, and the smooth side I'm going to use for the positive. Sometimes one side will have text on it, but most of the time when it comes to this type of wire, it just does a serrated and smooth. So, and there's a hole that you can feed the wire through. That's usually what I do. I feed the wire through the hole, and then I fold it around so I can solder it all together and make it a solid connection. I do the negative first, and then at the top it's got some fingers for crimping. I just need to get out a crimp tool. You can use the entire tool or the crimp section, or you can just use the plier end if it has a plier end like these do, to fold over the 3 fingers. Fold them over, and then I'm going to use the crimp tool. I find that if I fold them over first, they actually do their job and they don't split out of the way. And then, there we go. My soldering iron's heated up. Then the small one is supposed to go over the positive. And what that does is when you solder them together, which this is too small for this size insulation. Let's see if any of these are slightly fatter. Nope, gonna have to get some fatter. So let's move this out of my way. So if this was the black one and I was using the same thin zip wire, what this does is when you solder it into the hole here, if your wires are the same length, you have 2 hots, or a hot and negative, the same amount of copper showing, which can cause a potential arc or short. So what this does is once you have it soldered, you slide the heat shrink down and it prevents the 2 from touching each other, especially when you screw this piece back on. So my soldering iron is nice and toasty. We are going to solder up an end. Normally I would try and pre-tin the negative, but because it has the hole and I wrap it, I don't. I just solder it all together at once. I'm going to tell you that the amount of metal that you have to solder causes a heat sink effect, which means it takes longer for it to get warm and longer for the solder to soak in and do its job. So this part, if you do it at home, just be aware it doesn't instantly work because you got so much surface area that it has to absorb the solder. If you have a variable soldering iron, you can run it at a higher temperature. If you have a third set of hands, it makes it a little easier. I was using the pliers to hold it out of my way, but now I'm going to use the helping hands here so I can do the center, or I'm going to try to. The center one, I don't always use the hole, so what I do is I tin the entire tab. If the solder doesn't stick, you might need to use flux. And now I'm going to tin this. Again, it's a lot thicker wire, so it takes longer for the heat to transfer so it can soak in all that fresh solder. And now we're going to solder this to the center. So just going to use this to balance it and start the soldering process. Just need a stable surface. Problem is this cable, because I cut it so long, is trying to pull it out of my hands. And then done. So, turn off the soldering iron. We're good. Now, so it doesn't short out, you slide down your insulation. You slide it all the way down. You can use a lighter or a heat pen or a blow light dryer, a torch, flamethrower, whatever you got, and just shrink the insulation down, and that prevents it from contacting. And we slide this piece back up. Now if you were to use this, you would then heat shrink this above these connections so it fits inside the strain relief boot. And again, I'm not doing that because this is a thicker wire and I don't have the space. And now you're just going to slide carefully this over and then screw it back in. I'm going to put my little pliers. These will work. I just need a little bit more grip than my fingers. So that way they screw in. There we go. Now, for the other end, I got caught on the item that fell. We're going to do the same thing. I'm going to separate these. Now this I am going to heat shrink both one side and both of them together, so that way it re-insulates up here near the strain relief. So I need another small piece for one wire and a larger piece. I'm going to probably see if the black is going to be too big. And the black's going to be too big, so I'm going to have to do it with the red. Because if the heat shrink's too big, it won't shrink and create a tight seal. So again, the serrated side, which is this one here, I use as negative, and the smooth side is the positive. So this is the serrated side, and this is the positive. I'm going to cut this back right about there, and we're going to get rid of this dry rotted falling apart wire. Some of you are probably going, why don't you just use these? That's what they're for. Because I'm so used to doing things with just what I have in my hand. But I can strip these back, like so. That's the smooth one, so we're going to put the red over the smooth, so we know that's the hot. And we're just going to twist the wires together in a straight line, like that. And then we're going to solder these. Now again, when you twist wires together and solder them, the heat's going to transfer down the wires, so it takes a little longer for them to heat up. It's not a solder pad on a circuit board or something like that. So be a little patient, but watch your insulation. If your insulation starts to melt, then you're applying too much heat too fast. First, we're going to get some on the tip so I get good conduction. There we go, she's up to temperature now. Now solder follows the heat. So I'm just slowly moving the pen so that this penetrates all the wires and gives me a good solder joint. A different tip would make it easier. A different tip would transmit more heat faster. But since I already used it, I don't feel like changing the tips with it being hot. So they make different tips for different applications. Or you can use a solder gun, which pretty much only comes with one tip, and you just have to control the trigger for the heat or the amount of time that you're holding it to the item. And those are twisted, and now we're going to do it again. All the solder I use is lead-based, so it works better, and it does have a flux core, so it helps penetrate and stick, but you can always use additional flux if you're having a problem on the actual wire. There we go. And I'm going to slide this down and heat up this one, and then we're going to test it. So let's turn the meter back on. Go. Look at that. She works. Now we're going to slide the heat shrink down, and I'm going to go plug this thing in, and we're going to finish up Santa Claus and get it ready to go back to its owner with a new, longer, better quality cable. I'm going to run the heat shrink up to the strain relief to help protect the original piece I left out. There we go. Now that'll, one, protect the negative, which won't hurt you if you touch it. It won't even the positive, it's too low voltage. But it'll help seal and keep the motion on the solder joints from cracking. So, and that's the whole reason for the extra heat shrink. So, we're gonna go back over to the cell phone and finish up Santa, or try to at least. I got to figure out how to get the neck finished apart so I can get to that motor, because the gear is spinning fine. It's just, it's not spinning under a load, which indicates to me that most likely the belt's slipping and it needs a belt. So I got to figure out how to get his head apart, and I got to pick up the parts house and stuff that fell off the ledge I had over here that I caught with the cord. So bear with me. We'll be back in just a moment on cell phone cam. All right, his head is back on. I have not done anything with the upper belt other than there's an adjustment screw on the motor, which I have adjusted. So his head turns.
Merry Christmas.
And he dances. And his mouth works, which is the first one I've done that's had a mouth working. The Gemmys always have a broken part. And then stop them by pressing the button again. Now this adjustment screw changes the tension on the motor. When I loosened it, the motor moved freer and the gears moved faster. Getting to that belt, if you have to replace the belt that turns his head, is kind of a pain. I have not found an easy way to do it. I'll put a link to the Gemmy Master below. Maybe he has some advice. The only thing I figure is come through the bottom, unscrew the shoulder mechanism, and then you can get to the belt. Or, I wouldn't do that because it looks like it's a pain. Cut the band on his sleeve, slide his sleeve up and go through the shoulder right here, or lift his arm and cut the stitching and go in here to get to the belt, which is right about here that you can reach through this big hole area. I don't see any other way unless you can pull his entire outfit up when you cut all the bands and staples. I'm going to have to figure out how to restaple his pants back on so they're not dangling down. As you can see, got a little black plastic showing there, but it works. So this one needed a new drive belt for the swaying parts. You don't hear the motor that's spinning freely without any load, and a new power wire. This nice long power wire. You see it all coiled up right there, all the way over. Then you have to press it a little harder than I tapped it. So, Merry Christmas in May or June, whenever this gets put up. There we go. So that concludes the Santa Claus from Gemmy, the dancing, wiggle, I don't know what it's called. Dancing, wiggling, singing Santa. So until the next one, thanks for watching. Sorry for the mess you got to see that I deal with because organized chaos. So I can find my stuff. And now you see how this thing works and why he has a secondary hat. Let me shove his primary hat inside of it. And that's to cover the hole in his head, since he has been outside every year except for last year when he was in my place, and I haven't had a chance to repair him till basically now. So let's get his hat on. That make him look somewhat decent. Looks funny in the camera because camera's on wide, so it looks a lot taller than it really is. And even throw it off to the side. There we go. That looks good. So, for me and Santa, till the next one. How about a song for the way out? Merry early Christmas. O'er the fields we go, laughing all the way. Oh, 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 bells on top ring, making spirits bright. What fun it is to ride and sing a sleighing song tonight. Oh, jingle bells, jingle all the way. Oh, what fun it is to ride in a one-horse open sleigh. Hey!